First story. I invited my son's bully to his birthday party and told him to deal with it. The party went smoothly, but my son still sulked and disrespected me, so I took away all of his presents and grounded him. My son Jacob just turned 11. His twin sister Isla obviously shares the same birthday, so we did what we've always done, hosted a joint party for both of them. Usually we give them each a bit of space to choose some friends to invite separately, and some shared guests come too. This year was no different. We booked out the party room and a local trampoline park. 20 guests in total, pizza, cake, the whole thing. Now here's where the issue started. When Jacob was going over the guest list, he told me flat out he didn't want to invite Caleb, one of his classmates. He said Caleb was a bully and that he'd ruin everything. I asked what Caleb had done. Was there a fight? Physical threats? Something at recess? Jacob told me Caleb makes fun of him, calls him girls' names, and says stuff about how he likes this girl in their class, Emma. One time, Caleb apparently wrote a fake love letter to Emma pretending it was from Jacob and gave it to her. Now I want to be clear, that's immature teasing, but not bullying. I know Caleb's family. I work with his dad and occasionally see the kid in passing. He's loud, yeah, and definitely the type to mess around, but nothing dangerous. And nothing serious enough to justify outright exclusion from a party everyone else was invited to. So I told Jacob, we're not excluding Caleb. He didn't take that well. He said I was ruining his birthday and trying to force him to be friends with someone who humiliates him. I told him it wasn't about forcing friendship, but about not making a spectacle out of snubbing a kid over jokes. Kids that age tease. It's not personal. I've told him before that part of growing up is learning to let things go and not take everything so personally. Caleb hasn't laid a hand on him. He hasn't threatened him. He hasn't done anything beyond playground level teasing. And frankly, I think Jacob could use the experience of not being shielded from uncomfortable situations. This wasn't about his feelings. This was about not weaponizing a party invite as punishment. Jacob tried to drag Isla into it, asking her if she wanted Caleb at the party. She backed him up, said Caleb was annoying, and that Jacob didn't deserve to have his day messed up. That didn't sway me. Isla didn't even interact with Caleb that much at school, so her opinion there wasn't really relevant. I told her she could invite who she wanted. Jacob didn't get to set terms on who could and couldn't come to a party paid for and hosted by me and my wife. It's our house, our money, and our rules. Jacob argued. He pouted. He stomped off. I told him the decision was final. The day of the party, everything went smoothly on the surface. Caleb showed up with a wrapped Lego set for Jacob, a $40 gift if I had to guess, said, "Happy birthday," grabbed a slice of pizza, and went off to jump with some other boys. No problems, no drama. Jacob didn't say a word to him the whole time, just avoided him quietly. Fine, whatever. Caleb didn't make a scene. I thought that was the end of it. I thought we were through the storm. But apparently I was wrong. As soon as the last parent picked up their kid and things settled down, Jacob exploded. I was bringing trash bags out to the garage when he followed me and just started screaming. I'm talking full volume, red-faced yelling. He said I'd ruined his birthday, that I'd betrayed him, and he was never going to forgive me. He said it was the worst birthday he ever had, and that every time he saw Caleb he felt sick. He said it wasn't fair that I let someone who harassed him into his party, that he was forced to smile through it, and that I chose a bully over my own son. At this point, I was absolutely done with dramatics. I told him flat out that he was being ridiculous, that Caleb had done nothing at the party, had been polite, had even brought him a gift, and that all this sobbing and screaming was uncalled for. He called me a terrible father. I told him if he wanted to act like a spoiled brat over being asked to show basic courtesy and maturity, then fine, but I wasn't going to reward it. I walked into the living room and took every single one of the presents Jacob had received off the table and told him he wouldn't be opening any of them until he apologized for the way he was speaking to me and the way he was acting. He tried to say that wasn't fair, that the gifts weren't from me, but I told him I paid for the damn party. And if he wanted to yell in my face about being a victim after I bent over backwards to give him a fun birthday, he could take some time to think about it without distractions. He went to his room and slammed the door. I didn't chase him. I didn't lecture him. I gave him space. But I'm not going to sit here and let an 11-year-old weaponize the word bully because a classmate teased him in ways all kids tease each other at that age. This new thing where every kid who says something mean is labeled toxic or dangerous is out of control. We're raising kids with zero resilience. Jacob isn't some victim. Caleb's not pushing him into lockers or stealing his lunch. He made a dumb joke once. That doesn't make him a predator. And frankly, Jacob's response was way out of line. So I'm holding the line. If he wants to sit in his room and sulk, fine. But he's not opening those gifts until he pulls himself together and shows some accountability. Now, I get that some parents will say, you need to validate his feelings, and it was his day, and all of that. But I don't believe in indulging emotional overreactions when nothing wrong was actually done to him. He wasn't excluded. He wasn't embarrassed in public. He had a great party. The issue was that I didn't allow him to exclude a kid over nonsense. I'm not going to teach my son that he gets to dictate social punishments based on emotional whims. That's not how real life works. He stayed locked in his room the entire evening, refused dinner, didn't speak to me or his mother. Not a word. Fine. The next morning, still nothing. I knocked once, told him breakfast was ready, and left it at that. I wasn't going to beg an 11-year-old to come eat with his family. I also wasn't going to bring him food in bed like some wounded prince, because his feelings got bruised over a party that went off without a hitch. My wife wanted me to ease up. She said maybe I'd been too harsh, that he wasn't ready for that kind of conflict, and that we could have handled it differently. I told her I wasn't interested in raising a son who falls apart when he doesn't get total control over a party hosted by adults. Jacob thought he could dictate terms, and when that didn't happen, he lashed out. I'm not negotiating with that. I'm showing him boundaries. Later that afternoon, Isla came to me privately and asked if Jacob could at least have the gifts from their friends. She said he was really upset and that he was crying in his room. I told her it wasn't up for discussion. He crossed a line, and there were consequences. I also told her that if she started trying to manipulate things emotionally pulling the he's crying angle, I'd be rethinking some of her own privileges too. She dropped it. Smart move. Monday came. School resumed. No word from Jacob. We packed lunches and drove the twins like normal. He kept his eyes out the window the whole time. I told him, you can keep the silent treatment going as long as you like, but the gifts are staying locked in the garage until you're ready to speak like a person again. That evening, still no change. At this point, we were 3 full days in. I wasn't flinching. I told my wife to stop asking me to fold if we back down now. He learns that tantrums and social pressure get him what he wants. We're not building that into him. Eventually, Thursday night, he cracked. Knocked on my office door and said he wanted to talk. I said, go ahead. He didn't apologize. He repeated the same thing that I embarrassed him, that Caleb made his life miserable at school, and that I let it happen. Still no ownership of the meltdown, the yelling, or the entitlement. Just doubled down on being the victim. I told him point blank, you're not going to get those gifts until I hear the words, I'm sorry for how I acted. Not, I'm sorry I felt bad. Not, I'm sorry that Caleb exists. A real apology. He refused. I told him the door's still open when he's ready. He left. At that point, I talked to his teacher. I asked if there were any actual incidents with Caleb beyond what I already knew. She said the only thing she'd seen was light teasing. Caleb's the type who pokes fun at everyone. She told me Jacob sometimes takes things more personally than others, and she's spoken to him about self-advocacy. No bullying reports, no disciplinary issues, nothing outside the norm. Exactly what I figured. By the weekend, he started easing up. Ate dinner with us again. Still cold, but not frozen. Isla told me he said he still doesn't trust me, and that I humiliated him by siding with Caleb. Which again, Caleb was barely relevant. The issue was Jacob trying to run a party as a weapon against someone he doesn't like. At this point, the gifts are still in the garage. My position hasn't changed. I'm not returning them until I get a clear, direct apology for the way he handled himself, the yelling, the disrespect, and the entitlement. A few people at work, including Caleb's dad, asked how the party went. I didn't bring up any drama. Said it went fine, the kids had fun, and the pizza was good. There's no reason to drag a kid's tantrum into adult spaces. I'm not trying to humiliate Jacob, I'm trying to parent him. Online, I see all this noise about respecting your child's feelings and protecting their boundaries. And yeah, in principle, that sounds good. But I don't believe kids should be handed full autonomy when they don't yet understand context, nuance, or consequence. Jacob wanted to exclude someone over jokes. I said no. He melted down and tried to punish me with silence. I'm not folding. Kids need to know how to navigate discomfort. You're not always going to like everyone in the room. That doesn't mean you get to block people out to maintain a feeling of safety, especially not when safety isn't actually being threatened. He was never in danger. He was just uncomfortable, and I don't believe in teaching kids that discomfort is the same as trauma. Now I'm getting side-eyed by other parents. Isla's best friend's mom asked me if it was true that I made Jacob invite someone who bullied him. I asked her what bullying meant. She said she didn't know details, just what her daughter overheard. I said, if teasing and a fake note count as bullying now, then we all grew up abused. She didn't have much to say after that. Let's be real. This wasn't bullying. It was annoying behavior that Jacob didn't like. He felt mocked. He got embarrassed. But I'm not going to make social rules based on one kid's threshold for irritation. Caleb wasn't kind, but he wasn't cruel. He didn't mock Jacob in front of anyone at the party. He didn't say a word. He was polite, brought a gift, ate cake, and went home. So now we're 2 weeks past the party. Jacob still hasn't apologized. The gifts are still untouched. He's mostly back to normal behavior, school, dinner, and he even watched a movie with Isla the other night. But the wall between us is still there. That's fine. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to teach him something about how the world actually works. He wants to believe the world will conform to his preferences. I want him to understand it won't. If he learns that now, at 11, instead of later, it'll save him years of thinking emotional discomfort means he's being harmed. But maybe I'm being too rigid. Maybe I misread the situation and should have let him have his day, even if I didn't agree with how he handled it. Maybe forcing Caleb into the event was unnecessary. Maybe taking the gifts was punitive and not corrective. Still, from where I'm sitting, I don't see where I went wrong. But if I'm missing something here, tell me. AITA? Comments. Comment 1. YTA. You basically told your son that your coworker's comfort matters more than his. You minimized what he sees as torment because it doesn't look serious to you. That's textbook invalidation. Be the better man is not a lesson you teach by forcing a child to celebrate his birthday with someone who actively targets him. You rewarded Caleb with pizza and gifts and punished your son for having emotions about it. Congrats, you taught Jacob that coming to his dad for help is pointless. Comment 2. So your son asked you for support, and your response was to tell him that being harassed is just teasing, and he should suck it up. Then you let the kid who makes his life miserable show up to his birthday, and when he had any kind of reaction, you punished him. Not the bully, not the parents, him. You don't need to worry about whether you're the arsehole. You need to worry about how many more years your son will tolerate a relationship with someone who treats him like this. YTA. Comment 3. YTA. You didn't just ignore your son's boundaries, you stomped all over them to maintain some fake sense of fairness. What exactly did you teach him? That if someone humiliates him, he still has to smile and serve them cake. That his feelings don't matter unless an adult decides they're valid. You call it mischief, but Jacob clearly sees it as humiliation. Instead of protecting him, you handed him over to the exact kid he tried to get away from. Don't be surprised when he stops trusting you altogether. Update. I've read a lot of the responses. Some were brutal, but necessary. And yes, I get it now. I was wrong. I treated my son's discomfort like it was just a passing mood. Like he needed to man up and learn how to deal with it. But I never stopped to consider that what I saw as normal teasing was constant, targeted humiliation to him. I filtered the whole thing through my lens, not his. And in doing so, I failed him. I sat down last week and really thought about how this unfolded. Jacob came to me respectfully, clearly, and said he didn't want Caleb at the party. He told me why. Instead of asking questions or supporting him, I lectured him. Told him what he felt wasn't valid, unless it met my definition of bullying. When I told him Caleb was coming anyway, he didn't throw a tantrum. He got quiet, hurt. He even tried to get support from his sister. And when she backed him, I still steamrolled the both of them. Then I forced him to spend his birthday with a kid who humiliated him at school. And after he finally snapped after keeping it together all day, I punished him. Took away his gifts. Because I didn't like his tone. A few days ago, I gave Jacob his presents back. No conditions, no speech, just told him they were his, and I was sorry I took them. He didn't say much. Just took them to his room. He still hasn't opened most of them. I also reached out to Caleb's dad, my coworker. I was honest. I told him there's been repeated teasing, and that Jacob had felt embarrassed, disrespected, and singled out. He didn't get defensive. He actually thanked me. Said they'd noticed Caleb had a tendency to cross lines when joking with other kids, but thought he was growing out of it. He promised to talk to him. I still believe Caleb isn't malicious. But that doesn't mean Jacob should have to tolerate him. The lesson I should have taught was boundaries, not forced politeness. Since that conversation, Caleb hasn't approached Jacob at school. No more teasing, at least from what I hear. But the damage here wasn't just about Caleb. It's about me. Jacob still barely talks to me. Not angry, just distant. Polite, but distant. He'll ask me for stuff if he has to rides, dinner, the basics, but there's no real trust. He doesn't come to me with his thoughts anymore. I feel like I cut off a part of our relationship that mattered, and now I don't know how to fix it. My daughter Isla won't even look at me most days. She spends most of her time with my wife, and I don't blame her. She's protective of her brother, and I turned what should have been a day of celebration into a power struggle. She saw what I did, and she won't forget it easily. I've talked to my wife. A lot. She said this isn't about just the birthday. It's about how I've handled emotions in general, especially from Jacob. That I expect him to toughen up instead of listen. That I downplay things that don't meet my threshold for seriousness. She's right. I grew up in a house where emotions were dealt with by shutting them down. My dad would just stare at you like you were weak for even flinching. If I cried, he would say, "Stop it. There's no reason to cry unless something's broken." That's how I was raised. You get through things by pushing feelings down and pushing forward. I thought I was doing Jacob a favor by teaching him to be resilient. But now I see I was doing what was done to me, invalidating real feelings, because they made me uncomfortable. Because they didn't fit the mold I thought they should. I'm trying to do better. But I don't expect immediate forgiveness. The thing that hurts most is knowing Jacob came to me for protection, and I became the one who made things worse. He trusted me enough to say, "I don't feel safe with this kid." And I told him, that doesn't matter. That's not something you bounce back from quickly. We're doing family therapy. Started last week. Not because we're falling apart, but because I need help learning how to communicate and how to repair trust without making it about my guilt. I told the therapist everything, what I said, what I did, and how I justified it. She didn't coddle me either. She said what I did likely felt like a betrayal to Jacob, and that I have to be prepared for the fact that he may not open back up for a long time. And I'm trying to earn it back, not demand it. I help him with homework when he lets me. Drive him and Isla to school. Ask him how his day went even when I know the answer will be fine. Just show up. Consistently. No lectures, no lessons. Just presence. I know what I did wrong. I know that Caleb should have never been at that party. I know the present should have never been held hostage. And I know I should have believed my son the first time he said he was being hurt, even if it didn't look like pain to me. There's no excuse for what I did. But I'm going to keep showing up until my son believes I see him fully, completely, and not just the version I wanted him to be. Thanks to everyone who called it out. Even the harshest comments helped me see what I needed to. Second story. My wife of 16 years cheated on me with a younger guy. When I confronted her, she called me a predator, claimed it was my fault she cheated, and said her FWB is a better man in every way. Not asking for advice, just venting here. I 49M have had suspicions that my wife 37F is having an affair for a few months. I will admit before I go into it that I have a very low libido. We've been together for 16 years, and I wasn't always this way. But for the past 5 years or so I just haven't had interest in intimacy. My wife has said this is a problem for her, but I never thought she'd have an affair. Anyways, my wife was doing her usual texting and smiling at her phone the other night on the couch when she dozed off and let her phone fall to her lap. I grabbed it before it locked and checked her texts. The top text was from someone called Dr. Michael. She's a nurse at a hospital, so I assume he's a doctor she works with. They talked of things they've done together, seen each other again, and just normal everyday conversation. He kept calling her baby girl, and she'd call him babe or daddy, which made no sense since she's older than him. Some of their combos are pretty deep, like there's an emotional element, which hurts more. I looked at the pictures they've shared with each other, selfies, memes, spicy pics, and the most soul-crushing one he sent her that appeared to be him inside of her. I went to block his number and saw in the contact notes that my wife had saved his birthday. He was born in 1993. Not only is he about 5.5 years younger than my wife, but he is also 17 years younger than me. This felt even more crushing somehow. I can hardly look at her now. I just needed to get that off my chest. And it's too embarrassing to tell my family or friends. If you made it to the end, thanks for reading. Comments. Comment 1. Aside from the cheating stuff, have you tried to have your testosterone checked for the low libido? Comment 2. Yeah, man, a lot of guys think low sex drive just comes with age. But that's not always true. What she did is still wrong. But checking your health could help you feel better no matter what happens with the marriage. Comment 3. The age gap should be the least of your worries. Comment 4. Cheating is wrong, of course. But your wife is much younger than you. I have no idea why you married a 21-year-old at 33. Because it's a complete mental leap and a stage in life. But I'll give up on it. You were both adults after all, and you admit that you've had a low libido for several years, and there's been no sex in your relationship. And what? Haven't you done anything about it for several years? You haven't had your hormone levels checked, and you haven't checked if you have any medical conditions. You haven't seen a sexologist to see if the cause is something with mental health. You haven't done anything to find the cause of this problem and try to fix it. And you just expected your wife, who is 12 years younger than you, to simply accept the lack of intimacy with her own husband. Really? Sex isn't the most important thing in a relationship. There are more important foundations, but it's still a very important part. Your wife even told you that your low libido was a problem for her, and yet you didn't do anything to address it. You didn't go to a doctor. You didn't go to a sexologist. You did nothing. And it went on like that for several years. Should your wife have an affair? Of course not. If she's had enough of this relationship, where you see your problem, but do absolutely nothing about it, and you've simply lived with a low libido for several years, knowing it's a problem for your wife, then she should simply break up with you. I don't condone an affair, and it can't be justified. But it's certainly possible to explain where her need for an affair came from. I don't think you considered how she felt or what her needs were, and you didn't do anything to address the problem you were having. Because sometimes people have such problems. It's normal. Sometimes health simply fails for various reasons, and that's it. It happens. There are illnesses that completely prevent sex, but besides penetration, there are other ways to achieve sexual satisfaction in bed. And from your post, it seems you haven't been interested in that for several years, not even in giving only your wife physical pleasure. I understand her and her reasons. I repeat, the affair isn't the solution, and I think she made a mistake by cheating on you. I think she should have pushed you harder and made it clear that if you don't take action and go to a sexologist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other doctor to check things out, your relationship will end. Because it's completely normal for people in a relationship to need sex, at least occasionally. And if not as sex, at least intimate attention, and giving each other physical pleasure in bed in other intimate ways. With toys, different positions, and with her husband's participation. I think your wife would have a lot to say about her feelings over the past few years, and your lack of willingness to fix the problem. Again, the affair was a mistake on her part. You have the right to feel hurt, and you certainly do, because you experienced a big betrayal. Nothing justifies this. Your wife's behavior can't be excused in this case either. But I think it can be explained, and specific reasons can be given. Comment 5. The fact that she said it was a problem, and he just seemingly let this continue without being concerned about her needs is disappointing but not surprising for a man. Update 1 day later. As a brief refresher, I 49 am found texts between my wife 37F of 16 years and her doctor coworker 32M that made it clear they are having an affairs, including using affectionate names for each other and a picture of him inside of her. I admitted to having a very low libido for the last 5 years and Wasam embarrassingly hung up on him being so much younger than me. I confronted my wife after she got home from work last night about the texts between her and Dr. Michael. She admitted everything and seemed bewildered that I was hurt. She said she doesn't think of him seriously. He's just a friend with benefits. She said it's mostly my fault for ignoring her concerns about our stale love life. She said she tried with me, and I didn't try back, so she gave up. She told me she sees me as a predator, now that stole much of her youth. Because I'm a glutton for punishment, I demanded to see more texts since I originally found out. She showed me, and they were bad. Him telling her the sick things he wants to do to her and calling her sweet girl, and her saying, anything you want, and, when I'm with you I'm yours, playing up the Dr. BS, follow doctor's orders, baby girl. I thought I was going to puke. I lost it, and called her a word that starts with a W and rhymes with chore. I don't know if I'll get censored if I type it out, which opened up a can of worms. She countered by telling me that Dr. Michael is better than me in every way. He's taller, stronger, bigger, more powerful, more handsome, and more passionate. He FS her better than I ever did. When I think she's out with friends, she's actually at his apartment being manhandled. To top that off, she said it wasn't the first time. She reminded me of when she went into Manhattan last summer for a friend's birthday. She said she met a 26-year-old guy visiting from the UK, and that he asked her to go back to his hotel with him. Of course she obliged. I accused her of making this up just to upset me, at which time she pulled out her phone, scrolled for a couple minutes, and then turned the phone around to show me this young man, beaming from ear to ear outside a bar with my wife draped in his arms like she was a toddler. So now there's some kid on another continent telling his buddies about how he F-ked some girl in New York. That was my wife. This experience taught me that my wife hates me and resents me, and has been out to punish me for my low libido. She told me just because I've lost interest in her doesn't mean other men aren't interested in her, and she's right about that. To her great fortune and my misfortune, she's still beautiful and glowing and fun, and men love being in her presence. As much as I hate her, I also know I blew it with her. Divorce lawyers are being called on Monday, and I've saved a long list of therapists in the area that my insurance covers, and I'm looking to be in therapy by next month. Many people suggested getting my testosterone checked. This is also on my list of appointments to make on Monday. So, not a happy ending by any means, but an ending that was probably long overdue. TLDR. Satisfy your wife, fellas, or someone else will, and then she'll set your life on fire. Comments. Comment 1. She built up a ton of resentment about it over time, and used her feelings to justify her actions. It must feel awful for you and very humiliating. I'm sure you can find a more suitable person to be with in the future. Edit. I can see now what really caused this to happen. It's just an awful situation all round, and they've both paid for it. Comment 2. Plenty of couples struggle with intimacy, but not all choose infidelity as the solution. Comment 3. True, but this guy literally did everything but try and fix the problem issue. He became an ostrich and buried his head, hoping that his DCK would get better. She told him this was a massive problem, and his solution was he avoided getting his T tested. He didn't see a doctor, and he got overly involved with his own activities and work, ignoring her for 5 years. Affairs are 100% wrong, but what he did was wrong as well. Comment 4. Isn't this the guy that made such a big deal about the age gap in an earlier post? The wife and affair partner are 5 years apart, both in their 30s. He and his wife are 12 years apart, 33 and 21, when they get together. None of this excuses the cheating, but the fact that wife accused him of being predatory and stealing her youth points to there probably being more to this story than just a dead bedroom. Comment 5. I'm pretty sure it was 33 and 21 when they got married. Who knows how long they dated before that? Commenter 4. Ooh, I didn't catch that. Yeah, definitely even creepier. This has 30-year-old dating someone just out of high school vibes for sure. I'm not sure wife was the problem in this relationship. She just slowly realized how messed up it was but felt trapped. I usually don't like to make excuses for cheating, but I'm having a hard time feeling sympathy for OP. Comment 6. While there is never an excuse for cheating, there is also no excuse for disregarding a partner's earnest attempt to address something that is affecting the relationship. You say she brought it up more than once. Intimacy is a deal breaker for some people. If you had taken up with someone your own age, who understands how the body and mind change as seasons of life progress, maybe this would have ended differently. I'm not a fan of victim shaming, but you took up with a barely adult well into your 30s. Her views on intimacy were probably largely crafted by your influence. Maybe consider this in your next chapter. Comment 7. Did you really not try anything after she brought up her feelings to you multiple times? You didn't go to the doctor. Didn't try taking any type of medication. Did you try anything? OP. I admit I didn't take things seriously and didn't really try much. That's why I said I know I blew it too. It can still hurt, though. I make about $85K more than her, so spousal and child support will be on me. Also, we live in a no-fault state, meaning an affair can't be used against her. All assets will be split 50-50ths, and I'll pay out my arse for support for her. But better than living with her at this point. Oh, and she'll get half of my 401K, so that's awesome. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.